Hello, my friend and earthly neighbor. Welcome to the next exciting episode of the human race. Well, actually, it's the first episode of what I call Galactic November. And Galactic November comes down to your cosmic karma turning into a new direction. That is, if you have the fortitude and the courage to draw the line. From my heart to yours, keep streaming for your weekly Namaste Today. Welcome to Namaste Today. I'm your host, spiritual life coach, and the Sensei to serious joy, Christopher Witecki. It's an honor to have you back, friend. Namaste. Right now, the human race is in an awesome predicament. And you may go, what? No, seriously. I know things look like chaos with our climate, our economy, and our politics, but the truth is, chaos is opportunity for change. And it's also a representation of what is going on in the inside of each individual on Earth. For this entire year of 2019, we've all been facing our chaos and trying to bring peace to our inner self. And if you've been watching this show, I'm sure you've been on top of it. We've all been doing our best, releasing old stories, facing old ghosts, and passing on opportunities that used to take advantage of us. Now, as we come into November, we have a very interesting moment with the planets. We have Mercury retrograde in Scorpio and the Sun climbing in Scorpio at the same time. Scorpio happens to be the sign of drawing boundaries. It is the sign of death. It is the sign of the beginning and the end at the same moment. So in this strange moment, with Jupiter in Sagittarius and crossing the galactic center later this month, this is a moment to change your boundaries once and for all and upgrade your story to the next level. Now you may go, well, how? Well, I'm going to talk about just that. This week in our show, we're going to talk about two things. One, in the Soul Collective segment, we're going to talk about the planets and how this week, after you have fortified your inner kernel, it's time to explore your options. And the universe is giving you new options. That is, if you're open enough to listen. Then later in our tea time, I'm going to talk about what Mercury retrograde in the third decan means, and I'm going to talk about friction that will be eliminated when Mars stops squaring Pluto. And I'll dive that down for all 12 signs in the zodiac. But first, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather is from Monday, November 4th to Friday, November 8th, 2019. Looking at your 5-day moodcast. As you look at the week at a glance, really each day is a steady step upward. Let's drill down. On Monday, you're sunny and you are healing. Step 11 rules the day. That means that you're finally coming into alignment with your integrity, and the moon in Aquarius allows you to detach from what does not matter. On Tuesday, it's sunny and learning now. Step 12 gives you an emotional rite of passage. You're going to expand your comfort zones and open your heart to a new story. On Wednesday, it's cloudy and now shifting. Step 13 is the superstitious step of the day. The moon is in Pisces, so you're feeling your own karma, but the universe is saying it's time to resolve your conflicts. On Thursday, it's sunny and clear now. Step 14 rules the day, allowing you to see clearly in your mind, and with the moon in Pisces, you can sense where the line must be drawn. And then on Friday, the week ends good with sunny and cool as my prediction. Step 15 brings peace and opens the heart, and the moon in Aries brings you strength for the weekend. I'm coining this a Galactic November because, in my opinion, the entire Milky Way is going to rewrite its story. It comes down to you, and it comes down to many planets that are lined up in a very special way. We have Jupiter crossing the galactic center, which allows you to rewrite your story. That's a once every 12-year transit. We have Mercury retrograde, which allows you to rewrite your mind. We have the Sun in Scorpio, which allows you to rewrite all of your boundaries. We have Saturn in Capricorn at step 17 this month, which means you'll be making decisions that last for 30 years. And then, of course, we have Pluto in Capricorn, and Pluto hasn't been in Capricorn since the American Revolution. This really is the moment before the great change, which will happen in January. This moment comes down to you and your personal choices. And that's why I spent so much time and energy on this month's Mega Monthly Reports. If you're not familiar, my Serious Joy subscribers enjoy a Mega Monthly Report each month, one that's a general address that talks you through all the planets, and the other two are your sun sign and your rising sign. And this month I have added an extra feature. I have added the key dates and themes for each of the weeks. So now in the Mega Monthlies, you will see each of the weeks broken down. You'll see each of the important dates. I underscore when you have to turn a corner, when you face a fork, and when there will be a block in the road. This is just one of the many features available in my support at Serious Joy. If you're not already a member, I would say this is the month to try it if you've been thinking about it. You can start for the first month for just $3.99. You can unsubscribe by replying stop to any text message. Give it a try. If you're not already a member, visit SeriousJoy.com. And with all that information, we are now in the first week of this Galactic November. In our next segment, I'm going to talk about all of your options and encourage you to explore. Taking a sneak peek at the upcoming week, this week, the human collective consciousness is exploring options. First, let's roll back the clock. Last week was pretty intense. We had a new moon at step 4 Scorpio, which is a revolutionary step, by the way. We're actually going to have a new moon in Scorpio at step 4, a new moon in Sagittarius at step 4, and a solar eclipse in Capricorn next month at step 4. Step 4 is the human re-evolution. It is when the human reaches that point of can't take it anymore, and they finally jump out of the situation. Well, last week, the new moon was calling for you to jump out of a certain state of being inside yourself. That your core kernel, that is your relationship to you and what you trust and what you protect and don't protect, that kernel itself needed to be upgraded to a higher grade. And you probably spent the last few days sort of having to draw boundaries with yourself or open up to different situations inside of yourself. This was building your new fortitude, as I called it. This week, we now take that fortitude and go out into the world. We now take that new inner trust of ourselves and explore our new options. You see, we haven't really trusted ourselves on this level ever in our life. And if you have done the spiritual work in the last year, which the universe pretty much made everybody do, whether you wanted to or not, then this week I would say you've come to a place of trust in yourself that you may have never felt in your entire life. This is the most you have trusted and been able to stay strong. So that means all of your options in the world have changed. You are now of a greater value. You are now more of a rare gem. And if you can maintain that inner fortitude, you're going to law of attract different possibilities than you have had in the past. Now, there's a lot of planetary help to help you see the light quite literally. First of all, our heart this week goes from step 11 on Monday, which is integrity, and by the end of the week, we hit step 17, Scorpio, which means we will be ready to commit to certain outside boundaries. That's basically what's happening this week. We just spent a week working on our inner boundaries, and now we're working on our outer boundaries. So we're working on where we draw the line with certain people, where we draw the line with certain situations, where we draw the line with things like food or substances. It's really where the line must be drawn anywhere in our daily life. So this week, what you're exploring is where these lines must be drawn, especially now that you feel to be in an inner fortitude and an inner integrity. You're probably stronger than you have been. You're probably more fearless than you've ever been. And you're more experienced at drawing boundaries than you have been in your entire life. So again, this gives you great options. So in this week, you will do shopping as to what will stay in your life and what will go. And by the Sunday, you'll be ready to commit to what those are. Now, the moon in this time is actually exploring Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries. So in the beginning of the week, we're sort of feeling out for where we belong. Where does my heart belong? Do I belong with this, car manufacturer? Do I belong in this job? Should I draw a boundary and cut this off in my life? So Monday and Tuesday, there's a lot of feeling of where do I belong? Where do I aim for? This is kind of like wishing upon a star to some degree. I'm not saying you won't get it. I'm just saying that you really have to think big picture with the moon in Aquarius, like get bigger and see bigger and wish for a greater. Be willing to innovate. Then the moon goes into Pisces, and this is the point where we have to face some of our emotional karma, and that is, oh yeah, I've tried to make my life better in the past, but it hasn't been, or this happened, or this person blocked me, or I got sick, or this. So as the moon goes into Pisces, we have sort of our star-spangled banner suddenly becomes sort of droopy, and we start feeling all the times where we wanted to innovate before, but then it didn't go right at all. So that's sort of a self-compassion test. And that is really a test of facing your fears and seeing if you can spiritually take the high road. I believe a lot of people, while the moon is in Pisces, probably won't be able to, and they'll get sort of caught in their guilt or caught in their past life stuff. And that's sort of a karmic sand trap that you have to avoid. So keep your feelings positive. And remember some of your boundaries from last week, that inner fortitude. Don't let fear bring you down. Don't let an old voice inside yourself bring yourself down. So the moon is sort of a karmic sand trap in Pisces this week. And then on Friday, the moon moves into Aries. And that's really sort of the final test, I would say, because you will feel your kernel. You will feel what your ego senses of yourself on Friday. And the moon will cross over Chiron, which means you will have either healed some of your feelings about yourself or you will have not healed some of your feelings about yourself. And that really comes down to the work and time and energy you have put into yourself. But that is a possible derailment off of your path. And then we go into the weekend with the moon in Aries, and on Sunday night, the moon is in the high degrees of Aries, and it's step 17, and that basically means you're ready to decide and commit to the direction you want to go. So basically, it's an emotional week of dreaming, karmic sand traps, and finding your strength. Sound brutal? I hope not. And then we have, of course, Mercury retrograde. Now, if you're not familiar with Mercury retrograde, it is a period where your brain shifts hemispheres. So if you're a person that's normally an intuitive brain, you will now become logical. And if you're normally a logical brain, you'll now become intuitive. So you end up sharpening up in the area you're not usually sharp in. What that does is allow you to see things that you don't normally see because you're usually obsessing in your favorite hemisphere. Where Mercury is this particular week are in the high degrees of Scorpio. They start at step 26, so the beginning of the week is, what should I do in the future? How should I change my life? 26 is, how should I change my life? What should I commit to? That's the question. And there's always a question in a retrograde. And basically, by the end of the week, Mercury hits step 20, which means you are to the point of, okay, now let's think about how I feel about how I should change it. So you basically go from how should you change it all the way to how do I feel about making that change. So your mind is rethinking sort of big picture possibilities, and you are in the big picture world. What should I aim for? What should the big goal be? What feels right to me in the big world, right? So there's a lot of in the big picture and in the greater world too. This would be if you were working on a national thing or something that would be at the master level or a masterpiece. So those big picture ideas. Your mind is on the big picture, but your heart is dealing with the day-to-day reality. So this is an interesting disconnect that's going to happen this week. You're going to be going sort of back and forth between the future and the present. And I would imagine you'll be making lots of choices about where to draw the line in the present based on the future you want. The only problem is you're not sure what future you want, so you won't be quite sure of how to draw the line in the present. So it really comes down to what your heart and your feelings tell you moment to moment. And with Mercury retrograde, I don't think any of this is going to be entirely clear until Mercury hits its stationary degree of step 11, which will be on November 20th. So you're just going to have to agree to disagree with yourself, okay? Now, Mars, our ego, is actually doing a lot of breakthrough this week. Although we are sort of in la-la land, thinking about the future and the present and willing to erase everything, Our ego is still sort of focused on relationships. This week, Mars begins squaring with a square to Pluto. So we start the week on Monday with Mars squaring Pluto. That's literally our ego and our life and death issues sort of hitting an intersection. Okay, Pluto is where we draw the line, and Mars is how we proceed. What this means is it's going to be a conflict between your relationships and where you want relationships to go, and how you were headed in the world for power before. So your desire to be on a certain path of power and authority, whatever that is, whether you're going to climb up the management at Starbucks or you're going to play the stock market till you're rich, whatever that plan was, it is somewhat in conflict with your relationship strategy. So this week, that conflict and that friction is going to loosen up. But what it means is you're probably going to be aiming for different relationship solutions. So I'm predicting that this week your ego will be out looking for different relationships, different types of relationships, different types of relationship strategies in a relationship. And by the end of the week, you will likely have some sort of relationship breakthrough. And so you will end the friction between power and relationships, and it will be by changing relationships. Now, let's not forget, we also have Mercury and the Sun both in Scorpio, and we're willing to open and close boundaries. So I would imagine that November 2019 is going to be probably the highest rate of breakups in the entire year, and maybe the highest rate of breakups in the last 5 years, just by the nature of these energies combined. Now, Venus, on the other hand, our feminine energy, that's moving into our story. Venus moves into Sagittarius. She moves from step 3 to step 10 this week. And that means that you'll be opening up to the depths of your own story. You're going to be opening up to what you really believe and don't believe. So this means there's going to be a lot of inner philosopher sort of moments where you will be exploring and remembering that you once believed this, but it's not really playing out now. You're not sure what to believe now. So there's this huge question mark with Venus in the early degrees of Sagittarius of what do I really believe anyways? What does my heart really resonate with? This is the beginning of Jupiter completing its transit in Sagittarius, by the way, which will happen in early December. And what that will be is a full upgrade of what we believe about ourselves and what we believe about the world. This week, you start questioning what you really believe about yourself, and I'd say that's a really important thing to think about. If you're thinking that, oh my gosh, there's a boundary here, I can't get past it, or the world's working against me here, or I have these issues with my employer there, well, what do you believe? Do you believe you're always going to be stuck on that? Do you believe that's how your story turns out? Do you believe that that's meant for you? So this is a time, part of the personal re-evolution that happens because you get back in touch with your core beliefs. And like a true re-evolutionary, you are going to have to live by the belief until you can prove it through your actions and your deeds, right, and your words. So in some cases, your belief is what will sustain you. And this week, I think you get to some of the core of your belief. The other aspect that's super important to point out for everybody in this particular week has to do with emotional management. We have the North Node at step 10 Cancer. And what that means is we are now being directed. North Node is the universe saying, go this way, my child. 10 degrees Cancer is saying, go this way and manifest an emotional kernel for yourself. That means you're going to need an emotional kernel of fortitude now. And you're going to have to rewrite your emotional fortitude. In simple terms, it means that all of this change that you're proposing to go through can only be managed by knowing the tone, the feeling of what you're going for. So many variables are going to change. Boundaries, relationships, jobs. I haven't talked about Saturn and Pluto right now, but there's also literal huge decisions happening with power and authority. So all this transformation, relationships and everything, there's only one way you know you're not crazy. It's that you don't feel crazy. It's that you feel yourself. But do you know what feeling yourself means? So the North Node in Cancer is saying everyone must get to the core of how they feel and how it feels to be yourself. And not just how it feels to be yourself, but also what feeling you want to feel every day when you wake up. What feeling you want to feel every day when you go to work. what feeling you want to feel when you're in the presence of the person you love, or you're in the presence of someone you even have conflict with. Maybe you want to feel peace when you're in the presence of someone you're in conflict with. These emotional definitions are a huge part of what this month is about in Galactic November. It is this commitment to a certain feeling inside yourself that's going to keep you from going out of bounds in any certain direction. And it's also going to give you a wisdom spot inside of your emotions that will keep you from losing yourself if people challenge your boundaries or challenge what you're wanting. Incidentally, those challenges start next week. As soon as we hit step 20 or the sun at 20 degrees and above, there's going to be a lot of friction that really starts to heat up as a result of everyone's choices that they're making this week from exploring their options. So the North Node really says, move away from the rules you have once manifested with yourself, the South Node at step 10. Move toward the emotional tone that you want to feel inside yourself all the time. And as we explore this week, we hit 11, step 12, step 13, step 14, and then on Friday we hit step 15, which is when we find peace and we find tranquility with where the boundary is. So another way of saying that is, on Friday you find the sweet spot. You realize, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with and this is not what I'm comfortable with. And as soon as that happens, we literally have Chiron, the North Node, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all change a step number within the next 48 hours. So as soon as you find that sweet spot, all these parts of our personal consciousness all flip, which tells me that by the end of this week, you really will feel like you're heading on a different path, and you will also feel like your story is starting to be rewritten. Now with that, I think there's some core issues that everyone's facing this week. This would be a perfect time. Go steep yourself some tea, my friend, and let's have our weekly tea time. Hello, my friend, and welcome to our tea time. This week's tea time topic is resolving life's friction. Oh, I overdrank there. Resolving life's friction. This is going to come really from two ways. First of all, I mentioned it already in our last segment. Mars squares Pluto at 20 degrees at the beginning of this week. Mars at 20 degrees Libra, Pluto at 20 degrees Capricorn. That square is really sort of a power struggle between two forces in your life. One is the force of your relationships and the direction your relationships are taking you. And honestly, relationships are a huge, heavy part of life because most of the time, when we have a problem moving on or growing, it's because we've gotten ourselves caught in a relationship where our weakness is hooked on their weakness, and we're not going to get out of it until we figure it out. So we've been doing a lot of relationship karma, especially when the sun was in Libra. But now with the sun in Scorpio, this is the time where people have the courage and the strength to actually cut the relationships that don't serve them. So I believe this week, relationships that don't serve you, relationship directions that don't serve you, this is going to get in the way, sort of with the square, it's going to get in the tug-of-war way at the square, a power struggle with your power on Earth, your power to create, your power to destroy, your step zero, your ground zero, Pluto. So I believe a lot of this week will be about resolving power conflicts you have with certain relationship entanglements you have created on Earth. And with the sun in the mid-degrees of Scorpio, you'll actually have the scissors right there, ready to cut if necessary. By the way, I would say that you will probably have something come at odds by Wednesday. So if a relationship is going to be a big problem, there'll be sort of a flare-up by Wednesday, Thursday. You'll probably decide to cut. You'll think you need to cut on Thursday, and then on Sunday, you'll be ready to cut and run. So as we start next week, many people will have cleared things, situations, vendors, contracts, basically stuff in their daily life that keeps them held back, that keeps them in their own self-slavery by being attached to it, something you allowed yourself to be. So I'm going to talk for each of 12 signs about where this Mars-Pluto power struggle is. That's one area where you're going to resolve a tremendous amount of friction. The other area is actually going to be in your brainstorming of Mercury retrograde, as I like to say it. Mercury is retrograde. And I'm going to talk about the Mercury retrograde for you this week and how we're going to move from step 26 all the way to step 20, which means you're going to rethink the larger, greater picture of one area of your life. And you may go, well, how does that release friction? Most of the time, we have friction because we're aiming for something that's not in alignment with the rest of us. And our ego and our mind has become so determined to see the big picture a certain way, we don't realize that by following our own goals and following our own vision, we're creating a whole lot of hell and fire and damnation in our own life. So a lot of the friction is that people stay committed to goals that their heart has fallen out of love with. So for each of the 12 signs, I'm also going to talk about where you need to rethink the big picture in your life that will likely help you with the power struggles in other areas. And as always, I'll put to the side here what astrological sign I am talking about. I recommend you look at your sun sign, which is your heart, your rising sign, which is your long-term story, and any friend or family member that is important to you. Starting with our Aries. Aries are rethinking right now their life's transformation. So what you're reconsidering is what everything is going to be in your entire life. That's what you're reconsidering. You're reconsidering literally what you should aim for. So this can be in any one situation, like within your job at work. You might be thinking, what should I aim for at work? What do I even want? Am I willing to change? Am I willing to, retrain? So, or you could be rethinking everything in the sense of maybe I should just go to Costa Rica and totally chill for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So these are huge, big pictures. And for you, Aries, you need to know and think about what you really feel attached to in the long run. This is going to release a lot of pressure off of your conflicts and some of the tension that you've been having. I think what you want in the long run has changed. And the only way to know it is to feel through it. Now, the Mars square Pluto situation for you is that you're finally going to be able to resolve the power struggle you have between your relationships and your career future. So whatever you have going on, that relationships getting in the way of your career or career getting in the way of your relationships, I believe you're going to resolve that tension this week, probably by changing what you do in relationships, which will then open up new opportunities in your career. But again, if you don't know the big picture of how you're changing your life, you won't know what to do with your career or your relationships. Taurus. Tauruses are having to rethink what the big picture is of self-mastery. Self-mastery is basically what you want to achieve with yourself by the end of your life. So if you want to win a gold medal, an Olympic medal, that's something you want to achieve. That's a master stroke with your body. If you want to win a Pulitzer Prize, that's a master stroke with your heart or your mind. So where do you want to end up? What are you trying to do with yourself? What's the end game with yourself? What do you want to say to yourself when you're old and looking in the mirror? This is the question, Taurus. And this can involve relationships, but really this involves your relationship to yourself. Now, the conflict that you're going to resolve this week is between your lifestyle, the way you live every day, and what your life's real purpose is. Your lifestyle is probably keeping you from being on your purpose, or it could be the opposite. You're off your purpose, or you're on your purpose, and you're devoted to your purpose, but it's screwing up your daily lifestyle. So lifestyle and belief are the two things that have to resolve their conflict. It's most likely your lifestyle that's going to change because you have a lot to learn still when it comes to your belief and your options. But again, you won't know what to do with your lifestyle or what to believe unless you have a big picture vision of self-mastery. Gemini. Gemini are rewriting what a good life is. So you are redesigning what your lifestyle should be. Do you want to be in the Hamptons? Do you want to retire on a fishing boat and own your own shrimp company? Do you want to live with the family? Do you want to go on the road with like the Partridge Family? Like, what do you want to do? What's your lifestyle? What's the big picture? How do you want to end up? Okay, so you're thinking about the sort of lifestyle that you want to end up in, where the lines are, what gets in, what doesn't get in. And what you are actually resolving conflict between is your love life and your ability to trust. So there is basically a conflict between your love life and what you love and how you love and what you create and the ability to trust for some reason. Now, it's likely that your love life and what you create is going to move forward and you're going to be forced to have to change your trust, okay? But it's also possible that you already trust and you know where to trust, and it's your love life that doesn't fit in. But there needs to be a release of the tension between your love life and whether or not you trust. And this really goes into the type of lifestyle you want to live. Do you want to live a lifestyle where you're not trusting, or do you want to live a lifestyle where you're not following your heart? So knowing the quality of your lifestyle is important to understand and resolve the conflict between love and trust. Cancers. Cancers need to understand and rethink the big picture of what their personal dreams are. What is it that your inner child wants to do? What is your big imagination, personal dream? To climb Mount Everest, to have 50 puppies? I don't know. What is it? So you are not sure. I think a lot of that reason is because cancers have usually lived for other people and have put their own self-love to the side. So you are rethinking what the big picture of personal dreams is for you. And where you're resolving conflict is between emotions and relationships. So cancers are stuck in their emotions and their relationships. The two are hooking on each other and co-triggering. Now, it's your emotions that you have the power to change on your own, and your emotions that you will have a different response to in this upcoming week. By the way, you are prone to anger right now with Mars in Libra. You'll likely have to change your relationships and change the rule around your relationships. It'll be emotions that ends up probably forcing relationships to change. But that said, if you don't know what your heart wants out of life, then you'll have a hard time drawing your boundaries in relationships and feeling better. Leo. Leo needs to really think about what emotional security is to you. So what is emotional security? Do you feel safe? Are you out in the middle of the woods? Do you never see a bug? What makes you feel emotionally secure? What is the perfect home? What is the perfect family? What is the perfect life as far as feeling great every day and waking up feeling great? So you have to rethink what feeling good is. And where you are resolving conflict is between your attitude and your lifestyle. So you have created a certain lifestyle that you have now sort of backed into a corner. You have to make a change because you've hit a wall. It's called Pluto. And your own attitude also has certain insistent approaches, demands, if you will, for how things need to be. So there's a power struggle between your thoughts and actual reality. Your mind is fighting with your body. It's fighting with reality. Now, the one that's going to need to change the first is your mind. Your mind is going to be the one that changes and trailblazes ahead into new thinking this week, and your mind will be the part of you that has new options. Your lifestyle has a lot of changes that need to be made and will probably happen after you're clear about your mind. So the one that will win are your thoughts. However, if you don't know what emotional security is to you, you won't know if your thoughts have gone too far, and you won't know if you're in a good lifestyle. So you must get clear on what feels the best to you, and that will guide how to think and where the line is in daily life. Virgos. Virgos are looking for a new big picture of their mental attitude. So you need a new attitude. Attitude is a combination of feelings and thought put together. So it's an emotional thought, basically, is what an attitude is. And this new attitude is important because it will guide you out of certain rudimentary, lower level, negative past thinking that you can sort of fall into. Now, where you are having conflict resolution is between self-worth and love. There's a conflict between your self-esteem and your love life. Now, your self-esteem is the part of you that's blazing ahead right now and really ready to get on board. Your love life still has a lot of damage and healing that needs to happen, and I'm talking about your connection to your heart, your connection to your ability to surrender to love. Right now you have a lot of rules and you're somewhat controlling around love, and Pluto is there to help you sort of break through that once and for all. So in the conflict between self-esteem and love, self-esteem, self-worth is the one that's going to win. It's the one that needs to move forward, and your definitions of love and your boundaries around love are going to change. However, you will not be able to heal your heart and live with greater self-esteem if you don't adopt the right long-term attitude. So this week, think about what that attitude needs to be, one that supports confidence and one that supports love. Libra. Libra is coming up with a new definition of abundance. Abundance would be the big picture of what you want to manifest, what you feel you deserve. So you're redefining what that is. And I know this would be Libras. They tend to be a little too generous to other people. So I would imagine you have underestimated what you can manifest. I imagine you've underestimated what your abundance can be. So it's time to rethink what you're going for, what you're trying to manifest. Now, you have conflict right now between your behavior and your ego and your feelings. So the things you want to do, the ego desires, is getting in the way of your feelings, or your feelings are getting in the way of your ego. You could also say your home and family life is getting in the way of your ego, which is directly tied to your feelings. So any descendant of feeling matters, all right? So out of the two, ego moving forward or emotions feeling good, your ego is actually the part of you that's going to win. It's going to trailblaze and find a new way to behave that doesn't disrupt your emotions. And when it comes to emotions, you still have a lot of boundary work to do before you're going to feel good on your own. However, how do you know how far to go with your ego? How do you know if your emotions are happy or sad if you haven't really defined what's valuable to you? So you have to redefine what that big picture prize is. That will allow your ego to know what's worth chasing after, and that will also allow your feelings to know what value is and how to build the boundaries to maintain that value. Scorpio, it's a deep one this week. Scorpio, you are redefining the character you want to be. So Scorpios are deciding who they want to be next, what character they want to play. Are you going to play the hero, the victim, the savior, whatever, right? Hopefully it's just you. But you're coming up with a new character that you want to become. The conflict you have with Mars square Pluto is between your faith and your attitude. Your faith right now is actually stronger than your attitude. Your mind is pretty well deeply entrenched with certain negative thinking designed to keep you from getting hurt. So when it comes to faith versus the mind, faith needs to win. Let your faith go forward. Ride with your faith. Go forward with the faith you have, and realize your thoughts need to be rewritten. Now, when it comes to faith and thoughts, it's important to know what character you're aiming to be. This is why you need this greater vision of who you want to be when you come through this transition. Knowing who you want to be will tell you what you need to have faith about, and knowing who you want to be will tell you whether or not your thoughts are in bounds or out of bound. Sagittarius. Happy birthdays coming up, Sag. Not yet, but coming soon. Sagittariuses are rethinking the big picture of what their spiritual calling is. So why were you put on this planet? Why were you born? Right now, everyone's like, who knows that? Well, everyone has a glimpse of it every now and then, usually in this transit. So you are chasing after or being reminded of what your spiritual calling is. That's the Mercury retrograde. What is it? Why are you here? What's really important? What is really sacred? Now, the power struggle you're having right now is between your public reputation and your finances. Right now, you're moving forward with a new public reputation. That could be sales. That could be you being the soccer mom. That could be, you running for mayor. I mean, it's whatever. But you're moving forward with social stuff. And what gets in the way is money, and what gets in the way is the way you earn money. What the planets say is go forward with the social campaign. When it comes to money, you still have a lot to learn. Pluto is only at step 20, which means there's another 10 degrees of learning as far as abundance and opening up. But if you don't know your spiritual calling and you're not clear on why you were born, then you won't know necessarily what's worth chasing after in society, and you won't put too much of a price on money. So spiritual calling is going to help you with this tension between social popularity and financial success. Capricorn. Capricorn is having, first of all, a rewrite with Mercury retrograde about what their social ambition is. So what exactly are you going out there in society for? What do you want? Do you want to be mayor? Do you want to be known as the best cookie maker ever? Like, what is it that your heart wants to be, the relationship you want to have with the public? What is that relationship? Where you are having tension is between your career and your character. Your career is pushing you to go one way, but your character, and let's say your character flaws, are probably holding back some of that career motivation. What the planets say is, right now your career is what needs to move forward. When it comes to character and character flaw, again, we have another 10 degrees with Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto enters into Aquarius in 2023. So you have a lot of character still to be developed, but your career is ready to go right now. However, you should know what your social ambition is altogether, because by knowing your social ambition, you will fine-tune your career, and you will also know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable in your character. So know your social ambition. It'll help your career and character. Then Aquarius. Aquariuses are rethinking what they want in their career and legacy. This is what you want to be known for. What will be on your tombstone? What will be in that obituary? What do you want to say your life was about? What are the achievements? Who are you leaving behind? What's the big picture? It's time to think about the end game right now, Aquarius. Now, where you're feeling compromise or conflict is a struggle between what you feel your purpose is and where your faith actually is. So what you believe versus what you have faith in. And out of the two, the planets say, go with what you believe. What you believe is who you are right now. Your faith, on the other hand, is going to take another 3 to 4 years until Pluto goes into Aquarius, your sign, before you actually have the full faith and the full understanding. But when it comes to what you believe, the planets say you've worked that out, so you should run with what you know. Now, of course, you should know and have a clear mind of what your career and legacy end game is. That way you can understand how your beliefs serve that end game and bring you greater meaning. And also knowing the end game will help you be less fearful. It'll add to some of your faith, knowing what the goal is. And then finally, the Pisces. Pisces are rewriting what life's true meaning is. I know, it's a huge one. So what is life's meaning? What is life about? That's what Pisces are asking. And that's super important right now for you to calibrate where everything is going in your life, because where your life's purpose is ends up sort of trickle down defining the rest of your entire being. Now, where you are having conflict is between trusting yourself and your social ambition. You want to trust yourself, but then you also don't know what to go for in the world or where the world will like you or not like you. And the planets say, go with what you trust, forget what the world says right now. Whatever you trust should move forward. And if that affects your world reputation, so be it. But again, it's really important for you to know your life's purpose, because if you know your life's purpose, you can trust even further as to whether or not you're on the right path. And knowing your life's purpose will help you gauge whether you are in or out of bounds when it comes to your public reputation. So I think this is going to be a deep, personal, and complex week. I think there'll be a lot of introverted thinking with Mercury retrograde, and I think there'll be a lot of perceived friction. The real friction will actually come next week, like I said. That's when people will find out about what you've done, okay, and where you're headed. And everyone will have that sort of out party. And when that happens, then all these new boundaries that we set today will be tested on that tomorrow. So take full advantage of this week to understand clearly. Now, I want to shift gears here before I go. First of all, I want to say thank you to the people who, right off the bat, donated to me and my show last week. I'm really grateful. It was very humbling for me. It's a new comfort zone. And by the way, if you haven't received an email, you should. So email us at support@SeriousJoy if you didn't receive an email. I personally emailed every person who donated to the show and to Namaste today. And like I said last week, some people don't want to be a subscriber. Some people just want to gift and pay forward so that the show stays on the air. If you're interested in donating, I'm interested in receiving that donation. You can now visit paypal.me/lovewateki. That link will take you straight to donation. And like I said, I will email in great gratitude. As you also probably know, a great way to help out is sharing. Sharing my show with your friends and family is really the only way I have ever been able to move into new markets. It's through the trust of people like you. Helping me share is helping spread the light. So that said, if you'd like to be a part of my Serious Joy personal Sensei service with the mega monthlies and all we keep all the trolls out. It's at namastetoday.club. I post several times a week, so if you want to get to know some of my own things I'm into besides astrology, you'll find out by being a part of that club. And then if you'd like to listen to this instead of watch, I'm available on podcast on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Music, and Stitcher. My throat's starting to go here. It's super dry out here in Denver. Well, friends, I think it's going to be a galactic week. It's the first of 4 powerful transitionary weeks. Do your best, focus on the now, and remember those key qualities that I told you, okay? I'll be back next week when we start to face some of the emotional friction. Until then, I love you, friend. Live, love, be.